In
five, four, three, two, one, incoming.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Omnic Lab. We're a podcast that helps you focus on the strategy inside the game of Overwatch. We help you learn through trial and error in the lab, and even if things get a little crazy and blow up right in your flask. So we are going to brew some really cool team comps normally. Sometimes we'll cover individual heroes and help you stir in some tips to help you play better. And other times we give you some full strats for your team and even some mental tips on avoiding tilt for some of you stuck in what they call elo hell. So today is episode number 30. I'm your host, Rob May, and we're going to be wrapping up season 2 with my favorite host and yours, maybe, Andres Gomez. What's up, Andres?
Favorite and only, I guess. So what happened if there was another host? I wouldn't be your favorite anymore?
We both have 2 podcasts, Andres. We can't all be the favorite.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, fine. I'll take it. I'll be a favorite on this podcast.
Okay, good.
Glad to be here, though. A little under the weather, but ready to talk about season 2 and what we thought of it, the new changes that are coming up. There's a lot of stirring that's been being made in Overwatch right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of unrest at the top ranks with the changes. A lot of people excited for the changes because their mains got buffed, and others depressed that their mains got nerfed. So there's a mix of 22 hero mains out there. But yeah, I think it's a good way to freshen up the game. And today I'm also really excited to talk about goals setting, at least briefly, for season 3, and kind of recap mostly what happened with season 2. Obviously, you and I, as we're recording this, even live, we have a few more days left of the season before it closes. So we'll give you a brief update at the beginning of next week's show. But we didn't want to make something too heavy that is you must not miss this episode content right before the holidays. So we wanted to make it a little bit more lax, a little bit helpful, and kind of middle of the road episode for you guys that are going to be very busy this week, and yet give you something if you are commuting for those long trips in the car to see family. So, Andres, let's talk about our week in Overwatch. So we know that Pokemon Sun and Moon has come out for me, so I've been crazy busy doing that and some teacher stuff, and you have been getting sick, but we did manage to play Overwatch this week and this weekend. So give us an update. What's going on?
So far season 2 has been pretty interesting. The end of it, I was not expecting them to release the changes right before the season. I was thinking they were gonna release them in the week off so that everyone could kind of like experiment with them. But it was kind of crazy finishing the season like this. We were very used to playing with a comp that we had been practicing the whole season, especially me and McCree, and Shock was playing a lot of May. And now with all the new changes, it was kind of like, you guys got to change all that. You guys can't play the same comp you were playing because everyone is super mobile and there's so much damage at range right now that even our Reinhardt player in the team was impressed by how fast his shield was going down. He was like, wait, this shield didn't used to go down this quick before. So definitely some abrupt changes. It just wasn't some subtle stuff that maybe got some heroes in the forefront, but how has been your experience so far with these changes?
So, like I mentioned before, I was really excited about the Mercy changes, right? And I was a little nerve-wracked for what the Lucio 10% reduction was going to be. And they relatively let, Lucio kind of squeak by and Symmetra squeak by because they didn't have any new updates for her. And then on Ana, the speed boost has kind of changed my priority targets, as well as the overall nerf change to ultimate slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the ultimates being less frequent has definitely been something that I've noticed and have felt like I feel most players have, right? Like the game has become more panic driven from checkpoint to checkpoint without having that 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 little like panic attack every 40 seconds when everyone has their ultimates. But now it's become like a state of panic when you're on Mercy and you're getting peppered by 2 or 3 flanking opponents. You're like, I don't know what to do, but I can survive a little bit longer. So I don't know. It's been really interesting. I feel like there have been a few things that maybe bugs have kind of squeaked by. I've talked with some people that say that they think Soldier, when he gets nanoed, still feels like he can move faster and feels like he's shooting at an increased firing speed. And others are just saying, no, that's complete crap. I've seen some people talking about that. And
I saw a little bit of that. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. I think it might be just the impression that they get. Soldier by himself can be a fast hero, especially if he has a Lucio behind him. So they might just be feeling like the Lucio speed boost maybe on the Soldier, or he can sprint towards you even like while he's ulting. Not firing at the same time, but he can do a mini sprint, catch up, and then fire at you.
Right. Yeah, so I think overall, I've actually ended up doing a complete 180 from last week of like basically insta-locking Lucio every game. And this last week, I've been playing almost exclusively Mercy and Zenny. So it's been crazy, but I went on a tear after dropping like 4 games in a row, all the way back down to 21-20-ish. I went back up to 22-54, which is basically where I think that my rank kind of belongs, is somewhere in that 2200 range. Because after my initial tumble at the beginning of the season from 2400, I was able to float at this rank for a little while before dropping another 200 skill rating. So it's been really good. I feel like even though the changes have rolled out, I feel like it actually has helped me see where I've progressed to, because I actually feel like quite a big threat, even on something like a Mercy. But especially on Zenny, you definitely feel like more of an offensive threat because the ultimates have diminished, right? So those Discord orbs count even more.
Absolutely.
And you can pick people off really fast.
No, Sense feels super strong right now. Like if you pair it up with the new Soldier change, and you can even bring in McCree right now. Like a lot of people are saying like, Soldier's going to replace McCree. Soldier's going to replace McCree. But the honest truth is that McCree is in a good spot right now. I don't think he's a hero that's like super overpowered or really low. I think he's perfect right now. And he's still very viable. In the right hands, you can get a lot of kills with him. It's still hit scan, so you can be very precise with him. And his ult is still a great zoning tool. Not as much as a reliable killer, as much as a zoning that you can use to like counteract ults that are coming at you or a big enemy move. And now you can actually run them both together at the same time. And if on top of that you drop in a Zen, then you're all set, dude. You just put a Discord on somebody and you get your McCree and your Soldier to fire at them. And it's just so much focus fire at such a long range. That is one thing that I don't think you could do before this patch. Or maybe you could, but Soldier was just so unpopular that I almost even forgot that you could pick him as an offense hero. It was pretty much like I had forgotten that was an option. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys were running that full dive comp for a while until the changes rolled out, right? With the Genji and the Winston and all that.
Yeah, we were doing it, but now I don't know. Like I feel like those dive comps can still work a little bit, but I've seen like most of the meta has evolved into this weird kind of like triple tank with Soldier kind of meta, because you can dish out so much damage. And let's say, for example, you pair up a Soldier with a Roadhog and you just melt shields, any shield, Winston, Reinhardt. You just focus fire them and you can melt them at really long range. You don't even have to be like that close to them. So I think even Reinhardt has been seeing a shift, especially on Koth maps where he had become a little more popular. I know back in the day he was not as popular in Koth, then he became kind of like a staple. And now again, he's just a little bit too immobile, and his biggest advantage, having the shield for your team, is kind of gone now with how much focus fire you can do.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that there was a lot of those triple tank things, and a lot of my teams that I was going up against in my meta would not have the Soldier. They would actually end up running triple tank with a Mercy Lucio, even on Koth, and sometimes a Lucio Zen, and then they would have a Pharah. So it would be even more devastating. But like for my team, we ran McCree Soldier instead of the Pharah to counter the Pharah. Sometimes Shock would try to kill him out of the sky on the more what was it? I guess the confined maps, like inside the building on Paul, for example, or inside of that really small area on Ilios on Ruins. It's a little bit more difficult, but you have those corners you can move around. But yeah, let's where are you at rank wise, Andres? Are you happy? Like where you're kind of feeling like you're gonna end up?
I'm not super
How's your
super
progress?
happy. My season high was a little bit above 3,200, which was nice. I got halfway to
Okay.
Masters, which is cool. I'm happy with that.
Not bad.
I think I could have pushed myself a little harder, but in between work and 2 podcasts and stuff, it's just so hard to dedicate the right amount of time to this sort of thing. Especially, I'm playing a lot of DPS, and I feel like once you get up there with the DPS character, you really, really have to pull your weight. And that a lot of the time comes with constant play, being able to practice on a regular basis, and just being like generally warmed up all the time. I feel like it's so detrimental for me to not be able to play the game one day, or for God forgive me, sometimes 2 days straight without playing the game. But basically, I feel like once you wait that long, your muscles kind of lose it a little bit. And if you're playing constantly every day, just like at least an hour, it's kind of like your muscle memory is there and it's fresh.
Yeah,
And that's kind of it's been my demise on the last end of the season, not being able to play constantly as much as I want to. I'll have the spurts where I'll just play like 2-3 days straight for a good couple hours, and then by the third day I find myself climbing steadily, but then I leave for a day or sometimes 2, come back, and I'm like back in the same spot. And especially now with all the changes, I've been having to change a lot of the heroes that I've been playing. I've been having to change from McCree to Soldier a lot. And even though it's not
Totally different.
necessarily like night and day, with McCree, I find that I'm very twitchy. I try to I flick a lot more, just because you are like hit scan and you do single shots that are kind of like slow in between. Like his rounds
It's a
are
lot
not
of the
super
micro
round.
movements.
Yeah, there's a lot of micro movements, but I find myself doing a little more abrupt, because you can do that with McCree, but with Soldier,
Of course.
it's a combination of hit scan and tracking. So you have to be a little smoother with your movements, especially if you're trying to follow your target. You can't be as twitchy or snappy with your cursor, because then you'll miss like 2 or 3 of your shots, which is huge for Soldier, right? Like with him, you want to have a
That's a
constant
big
stream.
DPS loss.
Yeah, you want to have a constant stream on your target as much as you can. With McCree, you're just concentrating on getting those shots, and the time in between doesn't really matter as much, depending on your style. But with Soldier, like that timing in between shots is everything, right? You really have to glue your cursor and things. So it's been adapting to that. I've been doing a lot of target practice to get comfortable with it, but still I'm not in the comfort zone that I am with McCree. So yeah, adapting to that. I think I ended at 2,800, down from 3,200. So right, like 500 SR lower, but I had a good run. I made a lot of points. I played a lot of games this season, more than in season 1, which was my initial goal. Definitely made it higher than in season 1, which was also my initial goal. And then hopefully for next season, it'll just be a steady increase in that.
Yeah. Yep. We can talk about this more next week, but I feel like we're kind of redundancy is starting to hit in. So let's keep it moving.
Yeah, let's
so
do
we
it.
got our amazing patrons over at patreon.com/Omnic Lab. We have 2 new patrons. Special thanks this week going out to Will E and Carl M. Thanks, guys, for joining a part of the team as our new scientists. It's great to have you part of the squad.
Absolutely, dude. Thanks for joining us. And it's always nice to have new people show up their faces over here.
Absolutely. If you are a new scientist patron at the platinum level, don't forget to check out our YouTube page, where Andres has a link to a VOD submission guide for those of you who want to take advantage of your perk to get some sweet coaching from Andres. We also have our special diamond level scientist. We have Mr. Chris RcCrispy on that's RcCrispy on Twitch, and also on Twitter it is Crispy RCER. So you can go check him out there. If he's one of our admin, always facilitating some great discussion and lots of events on the Discord. So if you guys are wanting to group up, he's more than willing. We also have Mr. Magic on Twitter at a bit like magic. So you can check him out over there as well. Special thanks to those guys for supporting us at the highest level. It really is a sizable amount of commitment to give us each month, and we really, really appreciate it.
For sure. You guys are super awesome.
So that being said, if we could, let's do a quick touch on just what our goals were this last season. Andres, you touched on it a little bit, so I'll talk about season 2, and then what are we looking to do in season 3. So my goals this year, or this season, not this year, was to not necessarily climb the rank ladder, although that was one bonus part, is if I could get to platinum, that would be ideal. But to mechanically and positionally improve as a player. And then I also wanted to put more of a volume on the total number of games, which was an easy goal to achieve because the season by definition was longer by almost a full month. So that has helped. But I feel like I've actually achieved all of my goals except for arriving at platinum. So I'm pretty satisfied with that. My positioning on all of my heroes has gone better, gone up, and I've narrowed my hero pool to only support, and I've improved on every support, including the one that they just introduced in the brand new season. And I feel very comfortable on all of those heroes, regardless of where my skill is at within the rank ladder. My individual play is improving. So I'm very pleased with where I'm headed, given the given volume of about 250 games this season.
That's awesome, dude. I think that setting goals like that is very important. I think more than setting goals as trying to achieve a rank, like that can be really deceiving, right? Because even if you achieve that rank, sometimes it can be like, hey, did you maybe get a streak of lucky wins? Like maybe did your other team carry you through those last couple of games to get through that rank? So more than measuring your improvement based on your rank, I think you should base it on your performance, right? You should go into a game, really think about how you played those games and measure things like, hey, did I land a lot of Helix rockets that game, or did I miss them a lot? Hey, was I able to get constant picks and constant pressure on the enemy team? Hey, was I able to get the reses when my team needed them? Or am I sound burying at the right times? Am I sleep targeting the right targets, right? Am I using it every fight, or am I using my hook every time it's on cooldown? This small stuff, I think, adds up a lot more in the end. And those were kind of more of my goals this season. Sure. I really wanted to improve myself in McCree, and I really wanted to improve myself as a general damage dealer, specializing in hit scan. And then I wanted to do it in a team environment. And that's kind of what I did this season. I been playing with a lot of people from the community and formed a pretty consistent team, which I played pretty much all of the season with, and I concentrated a lot on those heroes. I went into the practice range a lot with those heroes to just kind of like test out how we do different things. I read on a lot of different strategies to blend well with those heroes, and I think I got generally a really good grasp on how to play them in a team environment, and what my priority targets should be. And I feel very comfortable, especially with guys like McCree, and even in switching to Soldier, because both of them kind of like fill a very similar role, just kind of like their damage dealing kit is a little bit different and have different strengths and weaknesses, but they're both kind of looking for the same target. So it's kind of like a easy transition. And then I experimented a little bit with Reaper, kind of happy with that. That was kind of like my goals for the season. I feel like I did good. Definitely could have pushed them a little harder, like everyone can always do with their goals, but hopefully it can keep improving for next season.
Yeah, I would echo that for transitioning to season 3 goals, right? Because our interview that we had with Skyline, while I was absent to the actual interview episode, it sounded like I was there. So props to you on the editing, Andres. I really appreciated that.
I'm getting
But
pretty
like,
good. I'm getting pretty good at the editing.
yeah. But I listening back to that even at work this week, and then like understanding that sitting down with statistics after a lower volume of 50 games or so, or even just your last 2 sessions of like 20 games isn't that helpful, was a huge boon to me personally. And just saying, okay, so like just to use the Ana illustration that we used last week was, am I landing my sleep darts this fight? Like understanding how long your cooldowns last, and then having the macro game understood to a level that that a fight is only going to last about 15 to 20 seconds, and if you have a cooldown that is about 10 seconds long, you're only going to get maybe one of that ability off during the scope of that whole macro fight. So that was very efficient for me to grasp. I felt like I was right there with him. And I was very much relating that to my other gameplay. Like, for example, speed boost with Lucio. Like, am I using this effectively? Am I maximizing using the speed and the healing aspect of that? Like, am I able to switch from speed to healing towards the last little bit and then switch back to speed, so we have the the ability to outmaneuver our opponents here and not mess up my Reinhardt and my allies when they're trying to do their ultimates if they have them. And then the other side was maintaining the jumps with Mercy. I tried to translate that. So how many jumps a fight do I have as Mercy? And then watching some other people, like where I am currently as Mercy is not my only priority. You know what I mean? Like staying alive and healing my target is only one aspect. Like I need to be looking to always knowing where my allies are so that I have places to jump. I need to know where they are if they're behind, line of sight. I need to be able to get out of line of sight and then also pop into line of sight and jump. So that's something that I've been working on, is like thinking 2 steps ahead of where I currently am positioned. Mm-hmm. And if somebody's taking damage, how I can actively leave and also protect. And then, balancing that out with, if you are alone, being willing to whip out your pistol and kill tanks. So that's some things that I've been working on. And then this next season, the other thing I want to start working a lot on is climbing walls more efficiently with Lucio, and then being more offensive and engaging on non-Koth maps. Because I feel like I am very offensive minded on Lucio with Koth, because he's the Koth king for support. But
for sure.
Maybe on payload, being able to maintain the payload presence a little bit better on defense or offense, I think is something that I really want to work on.
The Lucio video that I posted on the Discord inspire you?
A little bit, yeah. It's pretty impressive already, even on console. But for me, that was something I was like taking a little bit of notes where he positionally is based off of his team. But like I've been learning as I've been improving, Lucio's position isn't always like dictated by how many people are around him on his own team. Like you can dictate your positioning entirely from the enemy team a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to mention really quick over here, if you guys don't know, or let me just mention the name. If you guys want to know what video we're talking about, we were talking about DSPSTanky. He was a console Lucio player that was absolutely amazing at playing Lucio on the console. And in all his videos, he would get all this flack saying like, oh, try that in PC. In PC, you'd be a plat player, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of like bring him down kind of thing. So he was like, all right, F it. I'm going to get a PC. I'm going to play Overwatch on the PC. And he did. He switched over to PC. And he does a great video. It's over on our Discord channel. Or you just kind of like, you can look him up. It's called DSPSTanky
I'll try to put it in the
Vindication. Yeah. And it's an amazing display of what you can get to do with Lucio if you really spend the time working on him. And he just proves that like he was equally good, if not better, on the PC once he switched over. And he does some amazing plays. I definitely recommend watching the video. It's amazing editing. He did it really well. And he kind of like...
It's really entertaining.
Got back at all those people that were doubting him. But anyway... Moving on, I also recommend checking if you guys are trying to keep track of your stats and maybe have like a general kind of like baseline to see where you might want to improve. There's this really cool app. It was recommended by me by our friend Tattlebag. We play with him on Overwatch all the time. He comes to the community sometimes too. But he sent an email over with the app, and I thought it was really cool. It's called Oversumo. You can find it in like the iTunes store. I'm pretty sure the Android and stuff. And I think they've done this before with League of Legends, and now they're adapting it to Overwatch. But it's this really cool app where basically you put in your battle tag, and it'll compare your individual per hero stats to other people at different ranks. So for example, I can pull up my McCree profile, and it'll tell me, hey, you're dealing damage at a Grandmaster level, but your accuracy is more at a Platinum level. And basically it's just comparing everyone's stats at those different tiers and tell you like, hey, on Platinum, McCrees usually have about 42% accuracy on average. But once you move into Grandmaster, people have about 52% accuracy on average. And obviously these are all just averages, but it can maybe give you a baseline on like maybe how much you need to improve or like what areas in what heroes you're lacking a little bit. And granted, these are all based on stats, and stats don't say the whole story. If you do them over a big period of time, and especially if you just start tracking your sessions now with the app, then it can give you kind of like a good picture of what are your strengths and weaknesses with each hero. And it also gives you an average level at which you're performing with your hero. So it'll tell you like, hey, your McCree on average is Diamond, your McCree on average is, or whatever hero you're playing. But it was cool watching like all the stats. I've been getting the guys from my team to check it out too. Not to like see where they at, but more like to give him like more like a personal insight on their stuff. Yeah, check it out. Oversumo.
Oversumo. So Andres, what are your quick and dirty season 3 adjustment for your goals?
Ooh, for season 3.
Where do you wanna go?
I think for season 3, I really want to master Soldier, especially if he continues being this strong. And I like the style that Soldier plays. I like the hit scan style, and I like the long range. I'm a big fan of McCree, Soldier, Widow, even Sombra. I've been liking it because she's like a longer range tracer.
Yeah.
So yeah, just focusing on that style. I think mastering Soldier for season 3 in the beginning at least, and then I've also been trying to get a little better at more off role heroes, kind of like Roadhog. I think that Roadhog can be a great off role hero for a person that wants to DPS main for a team or just in general, because sometimes they will need that extra tankiness. And Roadhog is one of those heroes that you can get constant picks with, and if you can land those hooks, you can feel almost like a DPS or equally efficient as a DPS.
Okay. So picking up Soldier, picking up Roadhog, try to be a little bit more flexible and yet still stay focused on that hit scan. Awesome.
What about you, dude?
Let's...
what are your goals for season 3?
Well, I think my goals are going to be more offensive with Mercy. I like helping the team engage. I'm going to monitor my soldiers a lot closer with the damage boosting. And I'm going to try to be a little bit smarter with, again, thinking 2 steps ahead. And then for Lucio, I want to work on learning him better because he is so useful. Like a lot of times it's like, we need to have Lucio here. And other times it's like, well, if I come for pick Mercy, we might win the game. You know?
He is very useful.
And then the last one is with Lucio, I want to learn on that positioning, like changing positioning based off of enemy positions and not just my own team, and then learning the wall climbs on non-Koth maps a little bit better, and then getting better at wall climbing in general. And then with Zen, I'm actually working on trying to be less aggressive, like sit back more, and then also try to keep my Discord on one target longer. I found that I've been cycling my Discord too frequently, and I need to keep it on target so that my team can follow where the Discord is a little bit better. But yeah, I think that's basically it. As far as Anna's concerned, I haven't played her very much, and I do feel pretty comfortable on her. I think that the only things I'm practicing with her are sleep darts and changing my nano targets to be pretty much exclusively DPS now, unless there's a Diva, because Diva's ridiculous right now.
Nice.
Which segue, we can talk about how the changes have kind of hit us pretty hard recently. We touched on it a little bit in the outset, so let's talk about it now. So what do you think besides Soldier? We kind of beat him over the head as far as
we all know about Soldier.
Changes.
I think everyone knows he's good right now. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the other heroes. Let's start with Pharah. Pharah feels really nice right now. Her movement speed is a lot higher, and her damage is a little higher. But now that I see these changes, I can see why they added this. I don't think that Pharah necessarily like needed more damage or flight, but because of the changes that came to guys like Soldier, now she definitely needs to be able to move a little faster, because Soldier has very consistent damage output now at a long range, and she cannot like keep up with that. One thing that I do notice on Pharah though is that even with her damage output being increased, I don't think that she has very reliable output, not as much as Soldier. And let me tell you like why I think this. Whenever you do a call out, whenever there's a person that needs to get dealt with really fast or that is really low, Soldier can snap to that guy with a snap of a call. Just be like, Genji low, turn around, fire at him, kill him immediately from almost whichever distance you can see him, right? With Pharah, on the other hand, if you make the call out, first, she might not be in position, right? She's very squishy. Most of the time, she's kind of like hiding behind a building or something, or really up in the air. And when you do a call out, like, what does she kind of do against that Genji, right? Like, she has to turn around, fire a really slow-moving rocket, and then hope that the Genji is kind of still in the same position, or that she predicted the movement well enough. And the longer the range she is, then like the more apparent this happens, or the more apparent this becomes.
She's not very reactive.
Exactly, not very reactive. She still works great to like spam choke points. She still works great to like hit immobile targets, kind of like turrets or bastions. But even like breaking Reinhardt's shield, like Soldier is just better at that, with pair it up with like a Roadhog and just have like the rest of your team just fire the shield, and like it breaks in like 2 seconds, while Pharah still takes for freaking ever because she's firing like a rocket a second. So I don't know. She feels good. I think that in the right hands, she can get a lot of kills. But just the way the meta has evolved, especially when a team can pick Soldier, McCree, and Zenyatta if you're playing Pharah, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know where you go with that.
Bye-bye.
And now
Later,
let's move on to the next one. Let's move on to Diva, which I think further exacerbates this problem, because when you're firing this low with Pharah and you have a Diva, which is now a common pick because she's really good. We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, she's
and
amazing.
She has defense matrix all the time. She doesn't even have to have it up towards you all the time. She can even time the rockets. She can see the rockets firing from your weapon coming at her, and then just activate her matrix then for like half a second and you're good.
Yeah, no predictive guessing. Like, and even when you ultimate, Diva just turns around and neutralizes you and doesn't have to even kill you. Just lets her team do that while she just deletes your ultimate. So, not to mention, Diva's health has been increased, and she feels like a freaking monster. Like, she feels more like a monkey than Winston, if you know what I mean.
Diva is in a good place. People who wanted Diva to be good rejoice because she's back in the meta.
She's great. Yeah, I've been really enjoying some teams. Even though, you know, like how we said before with the speed increase on Diva, feeling even a little underwhelming, I think, because of how much damage she would take and how much health she gets burned through with the nano boost. Like, even though the nano boost doesn't give her that speed increase and she still has the damage or the speed reduction when she uses her guns, it still feels okay to nano her because she's able to survive, you know?
Yeah, so, and like the HP increase is so huge. Like, before, if you really focus her down, you could get her out of the mech relatively easily. But now, especially if she has healing or a Nana behind her, oh my god. It's just so freaking hard to kill.
She's a monster.
Plus her
because that shield just... or not the shield, the armor. The armor is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
even
the
for
armor is
Zen.
super ridiculous. It nerfs a lot of the damage. And like her frame is big, so Annas have no problem hitting her from the back and just keep healing her
Right.
constantly. And if the Matrix neutralizes pretty much any damage coming at her, so when it's played right, I've seen some incredible divas now that basically never lose their mech. And if they lose it,
Mhm.
they just ulti right then and there, and they regain the mech immediately. So I don't know, they've gotten so good at like always staying in mech.
Amazing. So I have to ask this from a DPS perspective. Does Mercy feel any different? Because now that like I've been playing on it and I've been happy that this Mercy change has happened, I feel like this Mercy change of giving her passive sooner makes it so that she's able to be played and not simply a really strong support. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. This change feels, or it's, I guess it's not as noticeable for me. Like
Okay.
I've felt
I mean, are you
it.
seeing Mercy in more games?
I have seen Mercy and I have seen him prep with Pharahs and it works really well. I think this change really works in that scenario where, especially even if you're just a McCree or a soldier, you still have to get a lot of hits into that Mercy or that Pharah, especially at a distance, because you're not dealing that much damage. And if you're not, if you can't be super constant against that Mercy, she's gonna be able to heal and she's gonna be able to stay up there with that Pharah for a long time. And I feel I've seen that being very effective even against the soldiers and stuff. So, and I think that the change really does work when she maybe gets caught by surprise and gets a chunk of her health just taken down, but she can quickly get to cover, and then right then and there she has a chance to like come back to life and maybe dodge it for a second, which I think was a big problem before, because she would escape and that Genji would just stick with her like glue and she would never be able to heal herself or get any help. So I think it works in regards to that. It works. But other than that, if you focus her down and she's out of position, this change makes no difference. Like you can kill her equally fast.
Right. I will say that like getting that change really makes it really makes it a lot easier to play Mercy on Koth in particular, because we ran a comp which was like a 2-2-2 comp where it was Mercy, Lucio, Soldier, Pharah, Roadhog, Winston, and the Winston switched to Diva about midway through, and we're playing on Nepal. And man, pocketing Soldier from behind some line of sight and like really abusing moving and weaving between line of sight with Soldier at your and in front of you it feels so strong, because you're able to just get that extra 30% on top of his new damage buff. And like him with a Pharah distracting in the air, like you can float between those two people and just kind of monitor where those two DPS are, and you're almost always in a good position as Mercy to not take a lot of damage, and you have two DPS that can protect you as long as you're telling them you're coming to them and they know you're in trouble. It works really well. But let's move on. We have Ana with the no speed nano. So I don't think that Ana, as being a necessary power, at least at the upper tiers, it has changed out of that role. I feel like she's still, a lot of games in the higher tiers is still getting auto picked, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But she
her
has
kid
kind
is
of
still amazing.
changed a little as to who she's targeting for the ultimate, right?
I definitely agree with that. I think that her kit is still amazing. Her bomb and her heals, being able to heal anyone almost at any range with hit scan speed, and then like that healing bomb is just so strong, both offensively and defensively. Like, have you tried putting the bomb next to the healing station that Soldier has?
Yeah, it's insane.
The thing
Especially
is
if you're trying to push through a
ridiculous.
choke.
Yeah, it's like Lucio's amped up or something, dude.
Yeah.
But so
You don't even need Lucio's on heal.
really good, and Nano is still like fairly decent. You just can't do abusive things like unleash a Reinhardt or a Winston into the enemy team that becomes unkillable and destroys everything in a couple seconds. Now you have to be a little more conservative with your nano, and I do think that the targets have changed. Like we haven't talked now about Soldier already, but he has become a prime target for nano boost, especially when he has his ultimate up. Not so much when he is just firing like normal rounds, because that can actually make it sometimes even harder for your DPS to get kills, in my opinion, because you're just not used to the speed and it comes like sudden, and especially with guys where you have to be precise, that can throw you off really fast with like Tracer or Soldier. But if you have your ultimate, then who cares? You have aimbot, you just go running around firing willy-nilly, and you just get kills by like spinning around basically.
Yeah, and like even with the nano change, like if you're still hitting the same targets, even if you're targeting Reinhardt still, the timing has changed. Like Boombat from your team and a frequent Aussie that I play with on our Discord, as well as one of our mods, has said that you don't nano until he's charging in and not before he charges in. Because what happens is you hear the Egyptian line from Anna and you get freaked out, and then everybody just literally outruns the Reinhardt. So I have even been waiting until Reinhardt does the Hulk smash and knocks everyone down, and then I nano him. Yeah, because they don't know when you have it. And I feel like that is another big thing, right? Because the 10% reduction in ultimates and the 15% increased reduction for Mei on top of that, people have their gauges all messed up as to, I think that this person has their ultimate, instead of I know this person on the enemy team has an ultimate now. Like you have to adjust, and that's been really hard for me. It's because like I'm pretty sure they have their ultimates. Like there's been, I think I can think on at least one hand of how many times I was like, this Reaper's gonna ult, he's dropping down, he's gonna ult, or he's wraith walking into the fight, or he's wraith walking out of the fight to get a health pack, and he's gonna come in and just wipe us out, and he just hasn't had it, and he just died. And I'm like, I don't know when people have their ultimates anymore, and it's really scaring me because I'm playing support and I'm not allowed to die.
You gotta get that biological clock running again. Get like the timing ingrained in there.
Exactly.
No, but I agree. Nano boost still good, but you definitely have to be more mindful of the timing. Although you should have been doing this even before the nerf, like not nano boosting your Reinhardt in the middle of anything, but when it's an appropriate time. Although because you had the speed boost before, I think that a lot of people will sometimes use it kind of almost like a pep talk. Like if your Reinhardt was being a little too shy or a little scared to run into the fight, he would just like nano boost him and be like, no, bro, you got this. You're the best. And then that gave them like some confidence and be like, all right. And because you had the speed, you could actually catch up. You know what I mean? But now that you don't have the speed, you can't really do that, because then your Reinhardt just looks silly, just like shining like a magnificent being, and the whole enemy team like just kind of like running away, like, all right, bro, we'll see you in a couple seconds.
Oh man, yeah, it's even funnier because like usually, like before Ana was out, you would speed boost on Lucio, and your Reinhardt would just kind of like keep the shield up and kind of wiggle forward, you know, with Ana, and you get ulted instead of having like a little cooldown, and you're like, well, crap, I got to take advantage of this. So it's like, I'm making this person go. It's like, hey, you got to go, pal. I'm sorry.
There was no Reinhardt in the previous patch that would get nano boosted and would not immediately dive into the enemy team.
Yep. And even if they didn't, the best was when I was in some of my solo queue games and I was on Ana, and you would nano the Reinhardt, and they would be like, they would reflexively hit their charge, and they would only go like 2 feet into a pillar and completely whiff it. And those were some of the funniest moments, albeit they were sad and you would usually lose the game, but it was super funny.
All right. Moving on, Mei ult seems a lot slower. Definitely we see a lot less of her ult. I think with the overall ult nerf and stuff, this hasn't been as noticeable as you would think. And just kind of like emphasizing the driving away from ultimate so much. We don't want to focus on those so much. That's good. I agree with it. I think Mei overall feels about the same. The ult does feels lower, but everything else kind of feels the same with her. She's still strong in the choke point maps where she can control with the wall. And she's still very hard to kill with her ice block.
feel like she's a little bit less valuable to have on offense now
Yeah.
because of this change. But at the same time, like you were saying, she feels just about the same for defensive teams. Defensive teams are still going to look to try to utilize her if they have someone that can play her.
I agree.
Um,
Moving on to Zarya.
Move on
Zarya is
to
an
Lucio.
interesting hero because we all thought that she just got nerfed and that was it. But in reality, I think that she got a little bit of both. She got a little treatment of nerfing and a little treatment of buffing. Her charge generation got toned down, but I don't think that affected her as much as we all thought it was gonna do her. If you are still good about keeping your charge up, you're still gonna have high levels of charge constantly, and you still can deal a lot of damage. It's just not as easy to randomly get 100% charge all of a sudden. But unspoken change, her beam got tweaked a little bit. Apparently, it was kind of like a server thing. I don't know the exact details, but basically, it would make it really hard for you to hit squishy heroes, things like Tracer or Genji or even Anna's, because apparently the ticks on the beam would just have this small delay, and especially for guys that didn't have a big frame where you could miss the model in between those ticks. It would just not register the damage as constantly. But this has been tweaked a little bit, and there's been confirmed players and streamers, and there's some YouTube videos out there of people saying like, yeah, it feels a lot steadier and a little more consistent, and you can actually do more consistent damage to these small guys. So for Zarya guys, being able to track Tracers or Genjis a little more consistently is great news, and actually it can be considered as a buff for her, especially at the
I
higher
noticed
ratings.
this really, like I don't play much of the tanks, but I noticed this right away when I jumped into some 1v1s. I like the 2 1v1s that I did. I got matched with the opponent, and we had to play Zarya versus Zarya in both of them, and man, it feels really nice, you know? Like I feel like it's more responsive. Your beam has an instant travel time, whereas before it sort of felt like that. Like you were saying, that tick kind of just took a second, and you're like, I'm pretty sure my beam's on them, and they're just not taking the damage, you know? Or you're trying to time it with the enemy Zarya, and you're trying to time it around their bubble. A lot of times you could start the beam right as the bubble is expiring and not get any charge to them. Now I have to wait for the bubble completely to disappear before I hit them, or they're going to get a little bit of charge.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then we have that Lucio change, which I don't know. Did we mention that? Or do we skip it?
Oh, he heals a little lower, right? He doesn't do as much with his.
It's like a
amped up.
10% reduction on the amp it up.
Yeah,
in
when you're
particular.
healing. Yeah. Slightly noticeable. I think that they've been constantly nerfing Lucio, but the thing is just he's just such a good character, and he is borderline overpowered. Like for a support,
Yeah.
if he just did like a little bit more damage, or even like the speed and the healing is just so good. Like if Lucio just did a little bit more damage, he could play as a Genji almost. Especially like after watching that video that I posted on Discord, if you get good with the wall rides, you can actually play him as an effective flanker, and having your little knockback thing can actually make you really abusive with those wall climbs and stuff.
Or you can contest the objective for the infinities. Like,
yeah,
it's
so
just like you go completely unnoticed in some Koth maps like where you can move.
Yeah, depending on how you do it. The thing about Lucio is that we've noticed he has an incredible skill ceiling. Like you can take him really far if you dedicate your time to it. But it's also one of those heroes that gets kind of like dissed away, especially by newer players who haven't played the game as much. They feel like Lucio is boring or just kind of like too simple and too easy. It's just like, oh, you just have auras and then you heal your guys and you kind of like stand behind your Reinhardt in the middle of the enemy team. I mean, in the middle of your team, and just kind of like heal, and that's all you do with Lucio. But people who really know how to play Lucio just do insane things.
They know he's busted.
Yeah, to the point where like he's been having to get like constantly nerfed with his speed, with his healing. His damage was like the first thing that got nerfed a long time ago, because what I'm saying, he started to feel more like a damage dealer than like with just like healing capabilities and speed boosting capabilities, which just made him even more insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Lucio Kid's getting toned down. I think he is still the best healer for that sort of like style. Like if you need team wide healings and speed boost, like there's nobody else that can provide that right now. Even Anna, which was the only other hero who could speed boost somebody, can't do it anymore. So that is the only way you can get that. So I think that he's still gonna be a must in a lot of comps. But with all the tone downs that he has gotten, I think that at this point is probably like the point where all of the supports have been the most on par with each other. There's not necessarily like this is the best every time. I think all of them fill a nice niche, and you can actually pretty much run most of them. Symmetra is the only one that doesn't really fit in there. But as far as like Lucio, Anna, Mercy, and Zenyatta goes, like all of them are super viable.
They're all
and
on par with each other.
All of them can do great stuff in your team, like depending on your comp.
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about Torb. Haven't played with him. Haven't played a lot with him, but yeah, I have played him in a 1v1, and it felt like it was an eternity. So,
oh my god, 1v1
the scrap
Torb,
change you can abuse in 1v1s. Like, you can pepper your opponent, pepper their turret, and wait for your scrap to recharge. So, I know from a 1v1 perspective, but like, getting the scrap passively seems really good, but I don't know. Like, just from utilizing what I have felt from the 1v1, I kind of feel like you need the regeneration for the scrap to be faster and reduce the amount that you get from kills and picking it up from bodies even more, so that you can use the constant tick rate of the armor, because abusing the armor makes Torbjorn like a zoning defense hero that he's supposed to be, and not like this, oh, this person's turret's up and we can't do anything without it. Like at the low elos or at the top elos, it's like we blew up the turret, we can go in because they're useless, No,
I definitely agree. I think that this is really good for him. But honestly, this should have been there from the start. Like now that I'm seeing it with it, is like, why wasn't this included with him from the get-go? Like that ability felt just so janky and like not intuitive, and like it was so dependent on like you getting kills with your team that if you didn't, it was basically useless. And I don't think any hero should have an ability that is useless if you're not getting kills. The point of the abilities is so you can get the kills, or at least prevent yourself from getting killed. But if you can't use it for either, then why is that an ability in the first place? I do agree that scrap regeneration could even be a little faster, and I like more of this direction where he doesn't necessarily have to be like this really annoying damage dealer that just takes you out with really no skill because the turret does the job for you, and instead turn him into what you said, like a zoning guy. Like basically, I'm gonna take this territory over here, I'm gonna make it really hard for the enemy team to get through here, because he himself can dish out like a pretty good amount of damage, especially at close range. So you can kind of like lock down.
Shotgun's insane.
Yeah, a certain area. And I love that he can make your team a little beefier. Just having them in the team can be a strategy to just make your team like just a little bit stronger. I don't know if it's enough to bring him into the top meta, although I have seen him getting played a little more lately. Maybe it's because people are trying to test out the changes. Who really knows if it's gonna stick around? But I like the more of this direction rather than messing with his damage and how efficient his turret can be. Maybe looking at the rest of his kit and seeing how he can be more effective with that sort of thing.
All right, Andres, wrap us up with Widow, because God knows I have no opinions on this one.
Cool.
So
Widow's still good. Widow's good in the hands of the right person. She has not become like incredibly better, not like Soldier. You're not gonna see her more than you have seen her in your probably like most meta. Maybe you'll see her a little more at the highest level of play, or maybe at the lowest level of play where people haven't given up hope on her. But she's still very skill dependent. You still need to be really freaking good at aiming with Widowmaker and getting those headshots. And if you're not, she's just not that good. You might be better off with another guy. Her ultimate is very dependent on your team and yourself and how much you can take advantage of it, and is not an ultimate that can turn the tide of battle just by itself. It's all about how you and your teammates use it, and same with most of her abilities. So it really comes down to your skill. The scope change did make it so that you can keep track of like fast fights like Overwatch has a little better, and feels a lot more responsive. I think a lot of people are happy with it, but I don't necessarily foresee like a super increase in Widowmakers, especially not with the meta that we're getting right now, which is still very tanky, and it carries a Diva, which makes it kind of really annoying for Widowmaker. And Soldier itself can actually contest range with Widow sometimes. Like you can actually fire at her and you could kill her before she kills you sometimes.
Okay, we got a couple questions for the email box for a change. So we got one from the email, we got one from Discord. So let's start it off with Curtis H asking, we usually queue with 2 or 3 of us. This is an Xbox player, by the way. And he has a dilemma when he does duo or triple queue. It happens way too often on consoles, supposedly. So basically, when he gets matched with other solo queue players that play Roadhog and Diva, is when the issue arises, because he and his friends will usually pick a Reinhardt with a Diva or Zarya in the duo queue. And then when randoms jump in and they pick, the Diva and the Roadhog, they generally will lose because A, it fails because both of the players are, tank players, and B, the Reinhardt doesn't exist in the team comp. So do you have any tips on or thoughts on how to improve the situation?
That's a tricky situation. I if it was the last patch, I would have told you like you guys might have to learn how to play Reinhardt if you queue with 2 or 3 people, and one of you guys might have to learn to do it and just do it yourselves. But this second patch, I don't necessarily know exactly how the console meta is evolving, but at least in the PC meta, Reinhardt feels a little less needed. Like he's still an amazing tank, and he is the only tank that can fill that particular niche of covering your teammates. But right now, Reinhardt is at a point where actually, if the enemy team has Roadhog and Diva and maybe a Soldier, more than likely a Soldier, Reinhardt's shield is just gonna go down almost immediately. You're not gonna be able to rely on it as much as you could before. And if your Diva and your Roadhog are firing at that shield constantly as soon as that Reinhardt puts it up, and your soldiers on it too, like it should feel so oppressive that you should be able to actually gain ground against him in this patch.
Sure.
Like I said, I don't know how the meta is evolving in the console, but at least on PC, especially in COF maps, you're seeing a lot less of Reinhardt, and if you see him, you see him struggle a little bit against those comps. And you have Diva, which is so mobile, which right now, like you can even do Diva and Winston sometimes with a triple tank comp, and that's just like 2 really mobile, beefy guys that can mess up with your Reinhardt a lot. And if you take that with a hook, like if your Reinhardt charges into a triple tank of Roadhog, Diva, and maybe even another Rein, like what do you do there? You just get instantly killed.
The other thing that he left out that is something that I would be curious to was like what elo he's sitting at when this problem arises. Maybe it's more common at different elos. And then the other side of the coin would be like, I think sometimes like I don't think that Curtis, you gave us enough information that we can work with. You know what I mean? Like if is the problem that you don't have a Reinhardt, or is the problem that you and your friend are tank people that only play tanks and you can't play DPS for whatever reason? Maybe you need to learn a DPS hero that you can comfort pick, 1 or 2 heroes. You say, okay, if I get locked out of my tanks, then I'm going to play this. And the other side is the full team comp for, like Andres was saying with Diva and Winston, those are dive comp heroes for Koth. Or if you have a Diva and a Roadhog, it's kind of like one is the flanking tank or the dive tank, and the other is the, get the pick before the fight, and then kind of just continually put more pressure as a DPS high damage tank.
Yeah. Well, now that you mentioned
so
that,
you need to complement that.
Yeah, you can also keep that in mind a lot. If you are running into comps constantly that just plainly don't want to take a Reinhardt, then you can adapt to that a little bit. There's heroes in the game that really benefit from having a Reinhardt, and if there's not a Reinhardt, their like capacity kind of diminishes a little bit. McCree is an example of one of those heroes. He can be amazing when he can have a protector like Reinhardt watching out after himself. He can shoot freely, but without a Reinhardt, he can be an easy target, right? They can dive on him, and he doesn't have really any good getaway mechanics, so you can get rid of him really easily. Or from a distance, you can actually fire at him, and he's squishy enough that without a shield, you can just kill him. Another example of this is Zenyatta. Zenyatta is very reliable on having like a friendly Reinhardt or like guys in their team that can kind of protect him as needed. So if you're lacking a Reinhardt in your game, you might want to look into maybe heroes that don't rely on him that much, like Pharah or Mercy, that can, fly in the sky and not even care about a shield at that point. Or taking a Genji with your Winston, for example, because both of you can dive together into people, and he'll still be covering you, but in a more mobile spot, if that makes sense. And having that said, I do know that Reinhardt is a great hero, and he is one of the best heroes at contesting a space. So for things like point capture and stuff, he can still be like such a great asset if we're trying to do those things. But just remember that there's many comps that work in this game, from dive comps to death ball to there's now one that is called the Zerg strat now with Sombra, because you can kind of like, you have so many heroes that can flank from so many different angles that you can kind of just put in position, and then like 4 heroes jump into you and just kill you out of nowhere.
Jeez.
So there's a lot of ways to approach this game. Reinhardt is just kind of like one of the most intuitive ones, but I'll stop my rant here because I'll probably go on forever with this.
Yeah, I was about to say we need to get to our other question here. So we have our console guy, as we like to call him, CS from one of our previous console interviews, asks, what is the oddest strategy that someone or some team has pulled out in a ranked game that actually worked out? So this could be a team composition, this could be an odd location positionally, and it's limited to this season, so season 2. Andres, do you have any? You played a lot more volume-wise games, so they may have blurred together with all those crazy games, right?
Putting me on the spot over here. I think I do have one. It wasn't necessarily like it was like their team comp on stuff, but I was pretty amazed at what they ended up doing, and it actually ended up winning the map for them because we were not ready for this. And this wasn't playing with my team. I think we were playing like in a 3-stack on Eichenwald, and when we got to the second point where you're carrying the payload through the bridge and before the castle, right then and there, the enemy team decided to do we're gonna drop you off the map kind of comp. So they had a Pharah, they had a Junkrat, they had a Roadhog, and they had a Lucio. And they basically let us carry the payload all the way to the bridge. And then after that point, the only thing
So the boop comp.
Yeah, the boop comp. The only thing they focused on was trying to boop us off the bridge. And sadly enough, it worked. Like, we were not prepared for that. And like, it was really hard because our tanks couldn't get really near the payload because the Roadhog was standing in this like really nifty like wood platform in between the abyss and the bridge. And he was constantly there. Like, and then the Junkrat was in this other angle throwing his little grenade that boops you off too. And then the Lucio was contesting the payload with the Pharah like hovering around him. And it was like, oh my God, how do you get near this guys? And like it was unfortunate because it was not our team comp, so we couldn't kind of like agree on a strat quick enough. to kind of like counter that. It wasn't enough coordination. And oh my God, it was just so annoying and funny at the same time. But that's the only one I can think of.
I can think of one, but it's the typical like Bastion cheese when you're on the second round and you're like, okay, we need to push the payload. We only got a minute. Let's go, you know? So right out of the gates on Route 66, this defense comp, completely the most unconventional thing, is Reinhardt Bastion sitting on the payload with a Mercy damage boosting the Widowmaker on the very back, and then a Zen with a Discord orb, and you have a Zarya kind of just like zoning the front. So Zarya, Reinhardt, Bastion, Widow, Mercy, Zen, and it's like we literally moved the payload maybe like 5-10 meters forward just to the corner. We didn't even get it to the gas station. Like we just completely got obliterated. And it wasn't that we weren't picking the right heroes. It wasn't that we were mechanically like not with it. I feel like we were just getting outclassed, you know, like this guy actually put enough hours on Bastion to know what to do. Mm-hmm. And the team had probably run this before. So the Widow was watching not what the Bastion was shooting. The Widow was looking for flankers. So it was an active participation of both of the DPS to cover the other. So Bastion's covering the front load. You know, Zen is also covering the flankers with the Widow and trying to make sure that the flankers aren't getting to the Widow or the Bastion. So you have like 3 people covering each other, and it's really difficult to punch through that.
Like our friend Illidan would say, sometimes you're just not prepared, dude.
Yep. And it really sucks when they pull out the cheese and it's an overtime, right? Or the second round or third round on payload. You're like, come on, I could have won.
And like I'm not a fan of like calling those strategies cheese, because honestly, like they're super valid, right? If like they're gonna pull some like funny like little thing that nobody expects and it works, like the power to them, right? Like great, you did something that is not conventional, and the enemy team just didn't think they were gonna go into that. And it's funny how Overwatch works sometimes, because you get used to situations, right? Like it's a game of muscle memory and also kind of like experience. So like the more you experience, the better you get. But when you get thrown into like a new situation like that, you just haven't had experience with that before. So you don't immediately know how to counter it or maybe how to adapt to it right away. And by the time you kind of like figure it out, it might be like too late. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. That's a cool question, CS.
Good questions for both of you guys. Appreciate you, Curtis, for asking us some difficult questions of something you're running into, and then some really interesting concept stuff from CS. Thanks, guys. And we also have 3 more people to thank for our iTunes reviews this week. We have one from Sweden from probably a Swedish name, but I'll butcher it nonetheless. It's Chedst. It's basically CHEDST. Thank you for your iTunes reviews. And Ben Hur, which I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't tell me what country this was, but it's not a typical country. So appreciate you representing your country. He's appreciative of the Reinhardt episode being a tank and Reinhardt main. He says, thank you so much for the interview. And Chess says to basically thank you for doing the podcast in a pedagogical way, which basically is like an ancient way of saying a teacher way. And then we have Geno Vesor, which I think that's how you say it, and he's from United States, and says great podcast, and goes on and on about a lot of details of things he really appreciates from a casual and competitive perspective, as well as things that are good for everyone, like communication episode that we had quite a while back being valuable. Thank you guys so much for your iTunes reviews.
Yeah, thanks so much for the reviews. I love reading these. It really warms my heart whenever I read these, and they're encouraging words. Especially I love hearing the episodes that you guys enjoy, the things that you guys want to see more of. It's a great way for us to know what we're doing right, and then maybe what things we don't have to keep doing, and keep improving the show. I think since we'd started, we definitely have a better direction and a more clear goal of where we want to take the podcast and what the podcast really is. And in part is thanks to you guys, just your awesome feedback, all these reviews, the emails that you guys send, all the suggestions in the Discord, or just even like reading your conversations on the Discord, like really gives us a north. So I encourage all of you guys to like keep sending the emails, keep sending the reviews. If you are not part of Discord, or if you are just a lurker in Discord, we'd love to we would love to hear about you. Just even if you say hello, what do you like playing? What's your favorite episodes? And just even engage in a conversation with other members there or with us. You're always welcome over there. We love it, and our community is super awesome. You guys are super awesome.
So that being said, if you guys want to find the Lucio video, I will be trying my best to put that in the reference links on our website as well as the show notes. You guys can find it there. And to continue promoting the Discord, there is something coming. We'll mention it on the show so that you go to Discord to find it. So there's something coming for some of you on Discord as far as the mods and the patrons and the admin. So please be on the lookout for that going live this week for patrons and folks at the leadership level in our Discord over at discord.me/OmnicLab. You guys can join the conversation, group up, play some games, maybe jump into quick play with some of our nice high-level players that are actually making Smurfs that are really close to competitive for Season 3. I won't mention any names, Fat Cake, but I'm looking at you. And then we got our Twitter and our Facebook is over at the tag Omnic Lab. You can also email us at the show, like our friend and yours, Mr. Curtis H. at omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to share the show with your friends, we have some links over at Google Play Music and iTunes, as well as some other Android apps like Overcast and I think there's one called Overplay. So you guys can look at those. Or Pocket Casts, sorry, not Overplay, Pocket Casts. And if you want to support the show, like we said earlier on, you can jump over at patreon.com/OmnicLab and support us in a monetary value. There are perks for you, and we have someone in the works working on some new iPhone backgrounds, as well as some sweet like Twitch banners for us. So thank you so much to Ryan for working on those for us. And if you guys want to grab a shirt, if you're watching this live or you're watching this on YouTube, I'm wearing one. It is an Omnic Lab V-neck. We also have a separate website, or you find these from our website. You can click the links tab, or you can click the shop tab, and it'll launch you over to our Spreadshirt. We also have a new one. We're working with TeePublic. If you want to jump over there and see their prices, the quality is a little bit different. The products are also a little bit different, but you can go check it out. We'll be rolling that out here. Andres, where can people find you, my friend?
Personally, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames, and you can find me streaming in this same channel, Twitch TV/OmnicLab. I'll probably be streaming my placement games next season once it rolls around, and I'm gonna be just streaming some, joke around kind of stuff in the meantime. You can also check out my Hearthstone podcast, Coin Concede, over at coinconcede.com. We do it over with Kenny, Cinder, and Cora. All awesome guys, and we're all ready to talk about the new expansion coming out. So if you're a fan of Hearthstone, you can always find me there.
And you guys can find me over at twitter.com/notrob or at plays.tv/u/notrob for some of my Overwatch plays. I've been uploading like normal some videos for you guys to go check out, as well as some videos for myself to go review and see some progress. So that's mainly it. You can kind of see how I'm moving in the support tree. If you guys also are interested in finding me in other games, you can ask for battle tags in our Discord or on my Twitter. I am freshly into my Japanese DS playing some Sun and Moon, Pokemon, and Full Tilt, enjoying it a lot. So if you guys want a friend code, you can also reach out on Twitter as well. Then I have my other podcast called Velen's Chosen. It's also like Andres' Coin Concede with his friends for me, but is Hearthstone podcast about budgeting and strategy as well within your card pool. You can join us over at velenschosen.com with myself, Andrew, and Eve. So if you guys are interested in Hearthstone, you can head over there or check out Andres and see which one is your cup of tea, or grab both, like coffee and tea together. Thanks for joining us on episode 30, guys. With wrapping up season 2, we hope that you achieved your goals, and if not, maybe you can wisen up a little bit and get your own goals for season 3. So good luck to you in your placements. We know that they're anticipating it to be a little lower, so don't be too shocked. And remember, don't be a lab rat, be a scientist, test things out, and we'll see you next week, Omnics. Adios. Have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the States. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Little shout out to Radioactive Thrill House. Thanks for making it to the show, man. Glad you could catch at least the end, and it will promise will be there on iTunes.
I'm gonna put this on YouTube tonight. As soon as we close the stream, we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Jusebo. I'll catch you later, man.
Thanks for joining us, Omnic. Usebo, you guys are awesome.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest